But if you read the rest of the lectures on a metaphysical level, in terms of what they say about God and what they say about the fall, then you can kind of start to understand unitive consciousness in a larger spiritual framework. So let me just kind of quickly review this. God and the fall. All right? What do the lectures tell us about God? The lectures tell us that God is a twofold being, or a being with two natures, one of which the lectures kind of, just for the convenience, describe as the masculine, okay? And that's God as an individual. As an individual kind of personal awareness, consciousness, just like you or I experience ourselves, well, not just like, but parallel to, let's say. And then also a feminine aspect of God, feminine in quotes, which is more along the lines of a soup of consciousness and kind of an energy into which other souls can dissolve themselves and can become a part of and share kind of a collective consciousness with God and with all the other beings who have blended into this soup, and then can, at will, kind of reconstitute themselves into an individual soul. Okay? Just as God is this way, we as individual souls, or individual souls, are this way as well. They have the option to be in both states, so they can have this experience of individuality. They can also have this experience, which I'm going to describe as the experience of merger. Okay? Now, that's God. Okay? Or that's all we need to say about God right now. The fall plays into all of this in the following way. According to the lectures, the early lectures, 19 through 24 or something like that, in the beginning, God was alone. And then God split off a piece of himself, herself. Forgive me if I use him for God and for the guide and all of that. To all you women out there, I don't mean the slightest bit of disrespect. It's habitual, and if there were a neutral pronoun, I would gladly use it. I guess I could say it, but somehow that seems disrespectful. So I'll do my best, but forgive me if I fail. God split off this separate being from God's own self, and this being here is the Christ. Alright? And then after that, God and the Christ together created all the other souls in the universe, of which there are countless numbers. Alright? And each one of these souls was given one perfect aspect. For example, intelligence might be an aspect, or compassion might be an aspect. I don't know what all the aspects are, and then was given a bunch of other perfectible aspects. Aspects which were not divinely perfect, but the task of each individual soul was to extend this perfection from the perfect aspect to all these other aspects. So that's the growth path that we as souls were initially put on by God and the Christ, okay? So that was the original kind of plan of growth. Now the fall came along when one of these individual souls got the idea to try to create, using the life force, which is the creative force, in its reversed polarity. Why that happened, I don't know, but it did. And as soon as this soul attempted that, the soul became in some way corrupted. The way I think of that, just because I'm into computers, is like that the soul's program, again I'm saying his, excuse me, but his operating system got contaminated somehow, and now this was kind of a deviant soul. This was a soul who did not understand spiritual reality correctly, a soul whose behavior was not in tune with spiritual law, spiritual reality, and therefore a destructive soul. And this soul gradually persuaded or induced a certain portion of all the created souls to attempt the same thing with equally negative consequences. And what happened within, I'm going to blow up an individual soul here, okay? Here's one soul. Apparently, this is my understanding of it. You might, if you're familiar with this, you might see it a little differently, but this is what I think I get from it, is that within all the little aspects of this individual soul, the fall kind of twisted and distorted some things. And we as souls, because this is us, okay, the way I understand this, I don't see any other way to understand this except that this is us, you know, that what in Christianity is referred to as the fall of the angels, we're really talking about the fall of us, okay? And that we're here on earth as a result of being among this group and having fallen, and now we're working our way back up the ladder. So anyway, the way we couldn't cope with this, we didn't know what to do with the fact that we now were carrying these distorted aspects, and what we attempted to do was to kind of wall them off, was to kind of separate them from our awareness, as we are still prone to do as human beings. You know, if there are things that we discover about ourselves that we don't like, you know, or experiences that we have that are difficult for us to handle, we have that impulse. So this is saying that impulse goes all the way back to our pre-human days, and eventually that impulse caused an actual fragmentation of the soul. And to the point where some souls fragmented into all kinds of little tiny specks and became, each of which did not even have consciousness as we know it and understand it anymore. Okay, so for instance, under this explanation, dogs, for instance, are soul fragments which do not, because they are so split, all dogs being kind of fragments of one soul, they don't have the kind of self-consciousness that we have where they can think of themselves as I, and so forth. And according to this framework, where we are in this progression, you and I, is that we are each half, I shouldn't have made that way, half souls. And that somewhere out in the world, maybe right now, maybe incarnated, maybe not, is the other half of you and the other half of me. And that among other things, within each half of us, there's an uneven division of male and female aspects. So one of the reasons that why we incarnate as men or as women has to do with the fact that we're trying to kind of integrate and deal with the minority part. You know, if we're mostly female, let's say, and a little bit male, you know, we might incarnate as a male so we can kind of get comfortable with this maleness. All right? Why? So that eventually, one day, we can reunite with the other part, which is going to be mostly male and a tiny little bit female. I might have made that too small, but I hope you can follow what I'm saying.